So, just finished the final episode of season 1 of Invincible, and I've got to say, this show exceeded all of my expectations. And I have to be honest, I didn't have expectations going in, and that might have helped. Like, there's a lot of these movies or series that, you can really ruin something when you go in with too much expectation or you know too much about the source material. Um, And, I've had that happen a couple of times. Most of the time, I'm still pretty satisfied, but because nowadays they just do an amazing job at adaptation. They didn't care about that when I was a kid. Um, but yeah, I think it really helps when you go in with zero expectations. And I knew nothing about Invincible other than Robert Kirkman wrote it. That's it. That's all I knew about it. Really had no idea of the storyline, characters, nothing. And I think that made a big difference. I really do. I think that, going in like that, just it was like discovering something brand new. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad I didn't know anything about it going in because everything was a huge surprise. And you guys have probably seen my reaction to episode 1 right after I watched it. That was genuine as hell. That was, I had no idea that was coming. And it blew me away. Much like this whole season did. This whole season was fantastic. And I'm just, I'm excited for season 2. Really excited. But this final episode, man, it was intense. Like, can I just say, if you can't tell, I'm really excited about this. Um, Let me just say that overall, man, I love this shit. I love it. Like, not just this series, but just the current climate we're in, like, what a time to be alive. Because if you grew up like me, where comic book based media was scarce, and what there was of it was not a very good adaptation. It was like this Hollywood version. It was never very good. Um, I guess towards the end of my childhood, like late '90s, it started getting a little better with like the Blade series, but um, and then Spider-Man followed after that, and it got a little better and a little better, and look at where we're at now with these Disney Plus series and the MCU and the DCEU and everything we've got. Um, but yeah, when I was a kid, this was like a fantasy. We never thought it would be like this. Never thought it would be this good. Like, for one, you never thought you were gonna get it, and now like, nerd culture, comic book culture is pop culture. Like, it's the cool thing. It's the in thing. Everybody's talking about it. It's insane. Um, but yeah, sidetracked. This episode in particular was an awesome send off. Like, I feel like finishing this final episode, they set up this world perfectly. Like, they introduced the world. We know what we're dealing with. We know the world we're in now, and they did it in a way that, like, a lot happened. A lot of crazy shit happened this season. But it still leaves you like, man, what could happen next? Like, now that we have the main characters in the world established firmly, which you don't always get that. You don't always get that. Like, especially with the episodes, I feel like 8 episodes was perfect. I don't, it's like I would have loved to get 10, but that might have watered it down. I've noticed that with some other series, like the Netflix Marvel series, they just ran a little too long. You had a couple of like lull episodes in the middle that got a little boring. Um, I think Disney Plus is nailing it, but this Amazon Prime series is like, dude, I think 8 to 10 episodes is like perfect for this stuff. And sometimes a movie won't do, and the series is what you need. And you run into that a lot too. Like, man, they should have made this movie into a series, much like Mortal Kombat, the new Mortal Kombat. I think that would have been much better as a series because it felt rushed. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here. So this episode with Mark, and his dad having this confrontation and finding out who his dad really is, um, that his people were a conquering people. Like, after they like pulled some eugenics on their planet and ended up with survival of the fittest, they're like, we're gonna do this everywhere. We're gonna be the only empire in the universe. Um, it, it's crazy, man. It's so good. Like, I like what they're doing now. like I said, it's been an evolution, right, with these comic book films and series and stuff. Like, it started out really shitty in the 80s and 90s when they tried to adapt stuff to film, and then in the early 2000s it got a little better, and you got a little closer to the source material. Now they're venturing out into crazy shit. Like, now they're bringing stuff like The Boys and Invincible to the table. Like, definitely, like, you know, I could at least dream of getting an X-Men film or an Avengers film when I was a kid. I could never imagine that I would see some shit like this. The closest we had to this was Spawn, the animated series, which is still one of my favorite things of all time. But, you know, with the live action Boys series, and then this animated series that looks so wholesome if you just look at the animation, you know, without seeing the blood and gore from the outside, you'd be like, oh, that'd be a good show for my kids to watch. No, absolutely not. It's just as vulgar and insane as The Boys. And I love it, man. And that's another thing about the landscape these days, is that they take the content seriously. And when I was coming up, it was all kind of a joke, right? They never took this type of media seriously. Like, comic book based media, it was a joke, it was slapstick, it was tongue in cheek, you know, it was silly, and they treated it like it was silly. And for real comic book nerds, we wanted it taken seriously, and now it is. Now it's taken ultra seriously. Like, now we get this crazy stuff, this dark side of being a superhero, you know, or super villain. But to see this animated series do it the way they have, it's been so much fun, man. It's been so, like, it went quick, and not a bad episode in the bunch. Like, the entire thing, I was enthralled the entire series. Every week, every episode. That's another thing I like, is getting back to something from my childhood that I didn't know that I loved and would miss someday. But the weekly episode release, like, man, that makes it makes it so much better. The anticipation and the not having to, like, rush through it just so you don't get things spoiled. Like, it's so much fun again to watch stuff unfold when you have to wait a week and wonder what's going to happen next. And yeah, I think my favorite part of this final episode has got to be that scene with the train, when Omni-Man is holding Mark in place while a fucking passenger train drives through them, and you just see the bodies and shit getting mangled. It was so gruesome and so fucking awesome. That was intense. Like, that, of all the crazy shit we saw this season, which even in this episode, he explodes a guy's head all over Mark's face, but from the beginning, from that first episode when he killed the Guardians of the Globe, that train scene to me was like the epitome of it all. It was like the craziest, you know what I mean? And the coolest. Like, I've never seen that done. We've never seen that before in any kind of, like, even like you watch The Boys, crazy shit happens in that. This was a unique thing, and I don't know if that's from the comic book or not, but damn, it was cool on screen. It was really cool to see, and like I said, gruesome as hell. And I thought this really showed the sinister nature of Omni-Man, and also how devastating, big citywide events can be. Like, Omni-Man created some serious destruction in the city, and just the way that you could hear the victims screaming and stuff, it felt fucking devastating, man. Like, and when I saw it, it was reminding me of, like, videos of, like, Ground Zero 9/11. Like, and I know that's, like, taking it a little far to say that, but that's the only thing I can compare it to, is, like, a giant, like, disaster of, like, immense magnitude, like, thousands of people dying, and to have it be in an animated series is insane, but so good. So good. I like that they didn't just end it with a big battle between Mark and his father. I'm glad that we got to see a little bit of what happened after. and like his mom dealing with before we get into next season, because I feel like it wouldn't have the same impact if you just started next season with his mom grieving and him dealing with the craziness that was just revealed to him. Um, I think it was smart for the violence to kind of end, about halfway through the episode, and then to get a little bit of the aftermath, because then you also got to see the aftermath in the world around him, and I think it was just done so well. Like, and I don't know, like I said, I've never read Invincible. I probably will now, but I don't want to read ahead because I don't want to ruin anything that they might use. But had no idea any of this was coming. I had no idea. Like I said, I don't know what is coming straight from the comic, so I don't know what kind of liberties they took or anything like that. But if the comic's anything like the series, I imagine it must be pretty fucking amazing. Anyway, fantastic series. Awesome, like character development throughout. I loved it. I loved it. I loved the twists and the surprises. I loved the reveal of who Omni-Man really was in the end. And I love this idea of like Mark struggling with like his father being the man he always wanted to emulate, wanted to become, and now he's coming to terms with the fact like this man is evil. The worst villain he might ever face is his own father. Ah, it's so cinematic, man. It's such great storytelling. And I was worried in the beginning, to be honest, when all the superheroes basically just resembled superheroes we already knew from like the Marvel and DC universe. But man, it was almost like a parody of it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were really trying to copy those characters. Almost like they were poking fun at it. And I just love it, man. Cannot wait for season 2. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. But I absolutely loved it, and I'm betting you probably did too. The people online have been raving about this thing, and I'm one of them. And that's why I always watch it right away as soon as I can, because I don't want anything to be ruined for me. And I want to be ahead of the game a little bit in talking about it. But yeah, if you like videos like this where I talk about movies, series, comic books, nerd shit, pop culture, sometimes I talk about current events. I'm really kind of all over the place, but I try to put out a video every day talking about something that I genuinely enjoy and care about. So, but yeah, it's variety. So if you want some variety in your feed, if you want something new and hopefully interesting every day, I try to do it every day. I'm not perfect, but most days I'm putting out some content. If that interests you at all, please subscribe to the channel. Or if you want just the audio version of this, I have a podcast version called Daily BS as well. Also, if you're into comic book based media stuff and reviews, I have a podcast called Marvel Plus, where each week I break down the latest episode of a Disney Plus Marvel series. So I've already done WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I bring new guests on every week to talk about it with me. It's a lot of fun, so go check that out if you're interested. And yeah, subscribe to this channel, and if you decide to subscribe, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.